Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Natural Relief for Adult ADHD, Complementary Strategies for Increasing Focus, Attention, and Motivation with or Without Medication, by Stephanie Moulton Sarkis, Ph.D., foreword by Ari Tuckman, Psi.D., narrated by Kim Niemi. Publisher's note. In this audio edition, you will hear references to figures present in the print and ebook formats of the book. Publisher's note. This publication is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is sold with the understanding that the publisher is not engaged in rendering psychological, financial, legal, or other professional services. If expert assistance or counseling is needed, the services of a competent professional should be sought. Forward. We are fortunate that there is now so much known about ADHD. There are piles and piles of really solid research studies that help us understand the causes of ADHD and, perhaps more important, how to help people with ADHD live more rewarding lives. This is very good news. Unfortunately, despite all this good science, it can still be confusing to figure out which interventions are most likely to help you or your family member. It can even be confusing for clinicians who are well-versed in this area. A quick internet search for ADHD treatment will yield millions of pages. How can you possibly sort through all the claims and contradictions without getting a PhD in the process? Fortunately, that is where this very important book comes in. Stephanie Sarkis has done the hard work of slogging through all the journals to determine which interventions have good research support and which are unlikely to be helpful. This will not only save you time and money by helping you avoid ineffective treatments, but will also save you heartache when high hopes are yet again dashed. Even if a proposed treatment is totally free and involves a minimal investment of time, there is still a price paid in additional and preventable suffering. If you spend a month trying something before abandoning it, then you have spent yet another month struggling as a result of your untreated ADHD, a month that was harder than it needed to be. And if you get discouraged and give up again for a while before trying something new, that's even more time. I am all in favor of innovation and give credit to people who are looking for new ways to solve old problems. This is a good thing. But it can also be a problem if the potential benefits of a new and untested intervention are oversold. The fact that something worked, or seemed to, for a small number of people does not automatically mean that it will be beneficial for others. This is why well-constructed research studies are so important. They tell us whether the proposed intervention actually works, and if so, for whom. For example, for most people with ADHD, or maybe just for kids with ADHD. More important, it tells us how likely it is that this intervention will work for you specifically. It's reasonable to have more faith in an intervention that has many double-blind placebo-controlled studies showing a large treatment effect than it is to trust a new intervention with a couple of small case studies. If you have several treatment options, it is usually best to start with those with the strongest research validation before trying the less likely contenders. By analogy, if you can't find your keys, it's probably smartest to look first in the living room and kitchen and then work your way around to less likely places where they may be. Most of us wouldn't start by looking in the attic, but that is what we're doing when we skip the best validated treatments and start with the long shots. You may have your own personal reasons for trying some interventions before others. It may be related to finances, insurance coverage, or perhaps the availability of local providers. Or maybe it is just a matter of personal preference. Make your own choices. The goal of this book is to provide you with accurate information so that you can make the best possible decision, one that is well-informed and well-considered. Listen to this book to hear what the science says, and then combine that information with your own personal preferences to make the best possible decision for yourself. Ari Tuckman, Psi.D., MBA, author of Understand Your Brain, Get More Done, the ADHD Executive Functions Workbook, More Attention, Less Deficit, Success Strategies for Adults with ADHD, and Integrative Treatment for Adult ADHD, a practical, easy-to-use guide for clinicians. Introduction. Welcome to your guide to non-medication treatments for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Know that if you're overwhelmed by the amount of information you've seen on non-medication treatments for ADHD, you are not alone. It can be tricky figuring out what you need to look for when choosing a treatment. This book will walk you through different treatments. It also provides data for them, showing you what works and what doesn't work, as well as how much time and money is needed for each treatment. All are presented with the ADHD brain in mind. Information is given in short, to-the-point sections and easy-to-absorb categories. The first chapter of this book gives you general information on ADHD, symptoms, impairment, causes, and impact on the brain. It describes issues related to the executive functions of the brain and their dysfunctions in ADHD. Chapter 2 describes what medications are available for ADHD, even though this is a book on non-medication treatments. That's because medication is the most common form of treatment for ADHD. In this chapter, you'll learn about the benefits and risks of medication, as well as how medication improves the way the brain processes information and can increase the effectiveness of non-medication treatments. In Chapter 3, you'll learn about using counseling and coaching to effectively treat ADHD. You'll also learn about cognitive behavioral therapy, a type of counseling that has been shown to be effective in treating ADHD. Because practicing appropriate social skills can be a challenge for people with ADHD, this chapter describes social skills training techniques. It also describes how couples counseling can help with issues that are common for couples in which one or both partners have ADHD. Chapter 4 describes the importance of regular exercise as an effective form of treatment for ADHD. Exercise increases the amount of a brain neurotransmitter, dopamine, that is naturally low in the ADHD brain. Also described are different forms of exercise, including martial arts, karate, tai chi, and yoga, and their effectiveness as treatments for ADHD. And you'll discover helpful ways to get on a regular and consistent exercise schedule, even if you haven't exercised before. In Chapter 5, you'll learn about brain games and explore whether they really help reduce ADHD symptoms. Neurofeedback is also described, how it may help change brainwave patterns and whether it's useful for ADHD treatment. You'll learn about movement and timing treatments in Chapter 6. For example, does interactive metronome treatment help increase cognitive speed? You'll also learn inexpensive, accessible ways to do movement and timing treatments on your own. You may have experienced times when your brain shut down because it was so overloaded. Chapter 7 offers techniques to prevent and treat that shutdown. You'll also learn to identify when that shutdown is starting, so you can choose to get out of a situation or to practice one of the relaxation techniques in the chapter, such as deep breathing or meditation. Chapter 8 introduces physical body treatments, such as massage and acupuncture. You'll learn how powerful touch can be in changing how the brain and body function. Chapter 9 describes how influences in your environment can have an impact on ADHD. You'll learn tips on responsible use of video games and television. Also offered are tips on how to combat insomnia, since people with ADHD often have difficulties with sleep. Chapter 10 introduces how accommodations, ways to adjust your environment at work, school, and home, can help you work to your potential. You'll learn about the specific accommodations you might need and also how to get them. In Chapter 11, you'll learn about herbal supplements, nutraceuticals, and whether they are effective in treating ADHD. Omega levels may be low in people with ADHD. Learn how omega supplements can boost those low levels and how to find a quality nutraceutical company. The importance of telling your prescriber about all your supplements, including vitamins, is also covered. Chapter 12 discusses how your diet can impact both your ADHD symptoms and your overall quality of life. You'll learn why people with ADHD may be more sensitive than others to food additives and dyes. Also described are steps for practicing a trial elimination diet when you suspect you have a food sensitivity. And you'll learn how pesticides and other chemicals may impact ADHD, as well as how to choose organic foods when you are on a budget. Throughout the book, you'll find out what research studies say about the effectiveness of different treatments. You'll also learn how much time and money a treatment requires and when to stick with a treatment or try something new. To find out more about a variety of non-medication treatments, listen to the resources at the end of this book. What to look for in a non-medication treatment. As you listen through this book, you'll discover many treatments available for ADHD. Some are supported by research studies that show their effectiveness. Some are not. It can be tricky and also overwhelming to choose from such a wide array, so keep the following questions in mind when looking at treatments. What are the benefits versus the risks, side effects, of this treatment? Is there solid research behind the treatment? What do noted researchers of ADHD have to say about this treatment? Is this treatment making any unrealistic claims, e.g., stating it is a cure or fix for ADHD? How long will the effects of this treatment last after the treatment is completed? Are there enough new activities in this treatment to hold my interest? How much time is required of me for this treatment? Do I need to travel to a clinician's office for this treatment, or can I do it in the comfort of my home? How much does this treatment cost? Do I have to sign a contract or any other agreement before starting this treatment? Does my medical insurance cover any of the costs of this treatment? The right fit between clinician and client. The clinician you've decided to work with can be key in deciding to stick with a treatment. You're more likely to benefit from a treatment when you and the clinician have a positive relationship and you feel comfortable talking with him or her. Clinicians can have varying levels of expertise and competency, just as in any other profession. So when scheduling an appointment with a clinician, ask the following questions. What is your view of ADHD? Do you do counseling and/or prescribe medication? Do you work with couples and families? What is your training in ADHD? Is there a type of therapy in which you specialize? What's your educational background? What are your licenses and certifications? How will I know when the treatment is successful? And do you have appointments early in the morning and after work hours? Do you have appointments on Saturday? What is the cost of each visit? Do you take insurance? Costs and paperwork. Avoid contracts. A vast majority of reputable treatments do not require contracts. If you are asked to sign a contract for a treatment, take the contract home for at least 24 hours and have a legal professional review it. Contracts are all about details, and paying attention to details is a challenge for people with ADHD. ADHD is a disorder of impulsivity. You may sign a contract without really thinking it through first. Reviewing a contract may help you avoid getting locked into payments for a treatment that you are no longer interested in or that is ineffective or fraudulent. Here are a few details about insurance to consider before you see a clinician. If the clinician you're thinking about seeing doesn't take insurance, you pay at the time of the visit. The clinician will give you a receipt so you can file for reimbursement with your insurance company if you choose. Call your insurance company before your appointment. Ask them how much they reimburse for the type of appointment you'll be having, e.g., individual counseling or a medication evaluation. Find out if the clinician is in-network or out-of-network with your insurance company. Generally, you will pay more for out-of-network clinicians. You can find out whether your clinician is in-network by 1. Looking up the clinician on your insurance company's website, 2. Asking the clinician, or 3. Asking the insurance company's customer service representative. When the insurance company's customer service representative tells you how much the insurance company will reimburse you, ask to get that information in writing. The representative can email or fax it to you or send a letter via regular mail. You need to have this information in writing because insurance companies may not honor verbal statements of coverage. What is the Medical Information Bureau? Any time you file a medical insurance claim, including claims for your visits to the clinician treating you for ADHD, the insurance company files that information with a clearinghouse called the Medical Information Bureau, MIB. MIB states that their purpose is to help prevent insurance fraud. The claim information in your file could affect whether you can get disability coverage or life insurance in the future. Because of this, people sometimes choose to pay out of pocket when they see their clinician, meaning that they pay the full amount of their bill and do not file a claim with their medical insurance. While this costs you more money, it does keep the claim out of your MIB file. You have a right to see the claim information that MIB has in your file, and it is recommended that you review your MIB file every year to make sure the information is accurate. For MIB contact information, listen to the resources section at the end of this book. What treatments interest you? You will hear a lot of information in this book, and it may get overwhelming at times. Here's a little cheat sheet if you'd like to take a shortcut to certain kinds of treatments. Have questions about ADHD symptoms and causes? Listen to Chapter 1. Want to learn more about medications for ADHD? Listen to Chapter 2. Interested in talk therapy or coaching for ADHD? Listen to Chapter 3. Want to know how exercise can help ADHD symptoms? Listen to Chapter 4. Do brain games really help ADHD symptoms? Listen to Chapter 5. Want to learn how movement and background sound can help you focus? Listen to Chapter 6. Want to reduce ADHD-related stress? Listen to Chapter 7. Interested in treatments involving touch like massage? Listen to Chapter 8. Need to change some habits that may be making your ADHD worse? Listen to Chapter 9. Want to know how accommodations can make you more efficient or productive at college, work, and home? Listen to Chapter 10. Considering taking supplements for ADHD? Listen to Chapter 11. Want to know the healthiest diet for a person with ADHD? Listen to Chapter 12. Chapter 1. Overview of ADHD. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD, is a genetic, biological, and neurological disorder that affects roughly 3 to 6% of the world's population. The percentage of people with ADHD in each country of the world is about the same: 5.8% in Brazil, 5.2% in Norway, 4.7% in Germany, 4.4% in the United States, 3.74% in Macau, 3.5% in France, and 3.2% in Lebanon. You are most definitely not alone in having symptoms of ADHD. You've probably heard both ADD and ADHD used to describe attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The proper clinical term is ADHD, even if you aren't hyperactive, and in this book, you'll hear the diagnosis referred to as ADHD. You'll learn about the different types of ADHD later in this chapter. Facts about ADHD. There's a lot of information out there about ADHD, so it's important to separate fact from fiction. The following facts about ADHD have been backed up by research studies. Knowing these facts will make it easier for you to wade through all the information you encounter. ADHD is debilitating. While there can be advantages to having a fast-paced brain, ADHD is still a serious and very real disorder. Adults with ADHD are more likely to have a significantly lower socioeconomic status and lower level of academic achievement than people without ADHD. People with ADHD have higher medical costs than people without ADHD. These higher medical costs are not just from ADHD treatment. People with ADHD have a higher rate of head injury and dental trauma. People with ADHD are also more likely to be obese than their non-ADHD peers, which also contributes to higher medical costs. Women with ADHD are almost 4 times more likely to have an eating disorder than women without ADHD. And they are also more likely to have self-injurious behaviors and attempt suicide more often than women without ADHD. People with untreated ADHD are more likely to engage in high-risk behaviors, such as gambling, develop substance abuse issues, have more car accidents, and be incarcerated than their non-ADHD peers. Having ADHD affects sexual behavior and sexual health. Teenagers with ADHD have a higher rate of unplanned pregnancies than do teens without ADHD. Adults with ADHD are more likely to have sexually transmitted diseases than their peers. Adults with ADHD are more likely to be unemployed than those without ADHD. One study found that 22.2% of adults with ADHD were employed, as compared to 72% of the general population. Another study found that only 24% of ADHD adults were employed, as compared to 79% of non-ADHD adults. This rate of employment improved with treatment for ADHD symptoms. ADHD is underdiagnosed. You may have seen or read in the media that ADHD is overdiagnosed. It may even have caused you to question whether you truly have ADHD. In reality, ADHD is more under than overdiagnosed. In fact, there are more people with ADHD who aren't diagnosed than there are people who are misdiagnosed. Also, it's estimated that only about 10% of people who meet the diagnostic criteria for ADHD seek formal diagnosis and treatment within the first year of becoming aware of the symptoms. Note that the percentage of the total population being diagnosed with ADHD has stayed the same over 3 generations. You don't outgrow ADHD. ADHD affects a person for an entire lifetime. When you have ADHD, the frontal lobes of your brain develop at a slower rate than those of someone without ADHD. Also, the frontal lobes of the ADHD brain never quite reach the level of maturation and functioning of the non-ADHD brain. This means that your symptoms of ADHD change when you are an adult, but never really go away. For example, as an adult, you may not engage in excessive running or climbing during a staff meeting, but you may now have a sense of inner restlessness. Later in this chapter, you'll learn more about the frontal lobes of the brain and how they affect ADHD. ADHD is treatable. The good news is that even with all the detrimental effects of ADHD, it is treatable. Having ADHD is like being on a mountain with a backpack full of rocks. You're trying to climb, but your load is heavy and you're huffing and puffing. You see climbers passing you by on the way to the summit, and you can't figure out why things just seem so easy for them. By the time the other climbers reach the summit, you're only halfway there, and you're so exhausted you need to take a nap. Treatments, if they are working effectively, take a lot of rocks out of that backpack, but not all of them. You might notice a decrease in the frequency and intensity of your symptoms. So, for example, instead of losing your keys on a daily basis, you now lose them only once a week. Instead of having 5 unfinished projects at work, you now have only 1. Again, your ADHD symptoms never fully go away. So remember when you review non-medication treatments for ADHD that there is no quick fix or cure for ADHD. Steer clear of any treatment claiming it can completely fix ADHD or get rid of it. Types of ADHD. According to the current diagnostic criteria in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, also known as the DSM-5, there are 3 types of ADHD: inattentive subtype, hyperactive/impulsive subtype, and combined subtype. Symptoms of the inattentive subtype. The symptoms of the inattentive type, here paraphrased from the DSM-5, relate primarily to difficulties with organization and focusing. 1. Is easily distracted. 2. Is disorganized. 3. Has difficulty paying attention to detail or makes careless mistakes. 4. Is forgetful. 5. Has difficulty focusing or paying attention during tasks. 6. has difficulty following through on instructions and fails to finish tasks. 7. Avoids tasks that require sustained mental effort. 8. Loses items frequently. 9. Does not appear to listen when spoken to. If you are 16 or younger, you must have at least 6 of the 9 inattention symptoms to meet the criteria for the inattentive subtype. If you are 17 or older, you must have at least 5 of the 9 inattention symptoms to meet the criteria. Symptoms of the hyperactive/impulsive subtype. The symptoms of the hyperactive/impulsive subtype relate primarily to difficulties with regulating and inhibiting behavior. 1. Is often on the go or seems to be driven by a motor. 2. Is fidgety or squirms in seat. 3. Has difficulty waiting turns. 4. Interrupts or intrudes on others. 5. Leaves seat when remaining seated is expected. 6. Blurts out answers before questions are completed. 7. Has difficulty playing or engaging in leisure activities quietly. 8. Talks excessively. 9. Runs around or climbs excessively. If you are 16 or younger, you must have at least 6 of the 9 hyperactive/impulsive symptoms to meet the criteria for the hyperactive/impulsive type. If you are 17 or older, you must have at least 5 of the 9 hyperactive/impulsive symptoms to meet the criteria. The combined subtype. If you are 16 or younger and meet at least 6 of the 9 symptoms for the inattentive subtype and at least 6 of the 9 symptoms for the hyperactive/impulsive subtype, you then meet the criteria for the combined subtype of ADHD. If you are 17 or older and meet at least 5 of the 9 symptoms for the inattentive subtype and at least 5 of the 9 symptoms for the hyperactive/impulsive subtype, you then meet the criteria for the combined subtype of ADHD. Impairment and age criteria. The diagnostic criteria for ADHD state that you must have impairment as a result of your symptoms. This means that the symptoms must make a significant impact on your quality of life. You are not able to be all that you could be. To meet the diagnostic criteria for ADHD, you must have impairment in at least 2 of these environments: home, school, work, or social settings. Finally, your ADHD symptoms must have been present since you were 12. Causes and effects of ADHD. Early in the 20th century, ADHD was thought to be caused by environmental factors such as poor parenting and was referred to as defective moral control. However, now we know that ADHD is a neurological, biological, and genetic disorder. When you look at ADHD from this perspective, you can get a better sense of how some non-medication treatments may work effectively to treat ADHD. You'll now learn more about the genetic and neurobiological causes of dysfunctions in the executive functions of the brain and the issues that result. Genetics. ADHD is genetic. It is passed on through the ADHD genes that you inherited from your parents. If you have ADHD, there is a 72 to 88% chance that you inherited the genes for it from at least one of your parents. Environmental effects have little to no role in the development of ADHD. Scientists have discovered several genes that are linked to ADHD. Brain structure differences. There are brain structure differences in the ADHD brain that can change how it processes non-medication treatments. The higher a child's score on ADHD ratings scales, the smaller the child's brain volume. This doesn't mean you could just pop open the top of someone's skull and see that his or her brain is smaller. Rather, our medical scanning technology is so fine-tuned that we can detect small differences in brain size that may not be visible to the human eye. Nevertheless, these differences are still significant when compared to non-ADHD brains. The ADHD brain has been found to have a thinner cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the cerebrum, also known as gray matter, compared to the non-ADHD brain. The non-ADHD brain shows no signs of cortical thinning. Children with ADHD have disconnects between the frontal cortex of the brain, which regulates attention, and the visual processing areas of the brain. This difference does not occur in non-ADHD children.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?